Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my March monthly wrap-up. And yes, I did put the books on the top of the couch behind me. I don't think this is a wise idea, they could fall down on me at any point in time, but they're there anyway. So every month I'm going to try and find a way to make this monthly wrap-up as succinct and efficient and not a massive long video as possible. And I know people don't necessarily care about whether a video is long or not, but I do when I'm coming to editing it. So we're trying a few different things this month, just like I tried a few different things last month. We'll see how this goes. In the month of March, I read 51 books and a total of 10,304 pages. I had 4 rereads in that time as well as a stack of video projects and review titles and things like that that came into various videos throughout the month. First of all, we're just going to have a look at the books that I read for various projects. When I started this year and I was trying to change things up, I did not intend to have this many projects in a single month. Who does that? Who does that? Me, apparently. So anyway, I had my Buzzwordathon vlog. There is I think the cover is pink vlog, the reading old review copies vlog, which was actually a really good project because that cleared quite a few things off my TBR. There was the tri-chapter Star Jar video, which you guys haven't seen yet, but is coming out this month. I don't think you've seen it yet. So that's coming. There is the 52 book club challenge, and there is also the hockey vlog. Hopefully organizing it this way has kind of shown you a little bit about, it makes it a bit easier to see what I've already talked about. So I'm not going to talk about these books in this video because there's a lot of them and I have fully dedicated videos for them that I will leave linked down below. Then there are all of my kids titles, and in this one I've included the review titles, which I'm actually going to talk about in a moment, plus the other kids titles that I have read. So there's various levels of things that I read. Anything that is sent for me for review, you will know I actually review on this channel and on my kids channel, just because the publishers have taken and authors have taken time to send me, you know, finished copies of their books. That's not worth nothing. So I do like to make sure that I review them on both channels. But yes, there's a bit of variety this month, and I'm here for that, honestly, because I've really enjoyed all of these books. So let's talk about some of the kids review titles that I received. One of the first ones was Fly Mama Fly by Anna McGregor. This was sent to me by Scribble Kids Books. This is a really gorgeous board book for younger readers that is about the connection between a mother and their child through the eyes of a grey-headed flying fox and their baby. It is gorgeous. The illustrations are beautiful. Anna McGregor and Scribble Kids books are just like a dynamite combination together. It's really lovely. There's some great repetition in the text, which makes it a great read aloud, particularly because this is really for that 0 to 4, 0 to 5 sort of age category. So it's a great one to read together. Then moving into some more board books, this time from Alan and Unwin. They sent me the first 2 books in the Aussie Babies First Word series by Tom Jellett. So there is Dinner Time and Bedtime. These both look at routines that young children are learning as they're toddlers, and they're very simple. They use Australian words for things, so it's very much an Australian context, which is great because there are words that are used overseas for things like a dummy, which is a pacifier for anyone overseas. That is pretty much exclusive to Australia, so that makes sense because that's the words that children are going to hear. They're really great for young audiences who are just learning their first words. I have a video review for this already up, so I talk about them in more depth over there. We might as well keep going with books from Alan and Unwin. They also sent me 2 picture books. The first one is My Mum is the Best by Nic McPickle and Tommy Doyle. This follows on from the book that they wrote together previously, My Dad is the Best, and it just looks at all of the amazing traits between mothers and children, and you know, these sometimes occasionally embarrassing things that mothers do that children don't like, or these sometimes annoying things like making them clean their rooms, but it is done in such a joyful, humorous and fun way that just makes it a really wonderful book for mothers and children to read together. Also makes a good Mother's Day gift. Then there is the narrative nonfiction Volcano. This is by Claire Saxby and Jess Racklieft. This is the team that worked together on Tree and Iceberg, which are 2 of my favorite narrative nonfiction books. They tend to work together on books that look at environmental issues. In this case, we are looking at an underwater volcano, how it is formed, how it affects the ecological system around it, and what it grows into. And I really love that because it's very concise in what it's looking at. It's very specific. It's not talking about all volcanoes. It's literally how do underwater volcanoes form and what is their impact. Really great book. Beautiful illustrations, great language, stunning, stunning picture book. Probably one of the books that I was most excited to see come this month because I absolutely adore Claire Saxby's work. She's doing some really amazing stuff at the moment. Also from Alan and Unwin is Stories from Magic Beach, based on Alison Lester's beloved classic. This is looking at the film Magic Beach, which was released this year, and it includes stills and stories that are inspired by Magic Beach, as well as including original bits of the text from the book. So if you're not familiar with Magic Beach, it's a really classic Australian children's picture book story. It's about 35 years old. It's been around my entire life. And it is the story of imagination. And they've recently created a film, which I haven't seen yet, but this is how that film was put together, the stories that are told, and the power of children's imagination. So it's great. And what are we up to next? Also from Alan and Armin. They were very kind to me in the last month, so I'm very, very grateful. There is The Thylacine and the Time Machine by Renee Treml, which is a middle fiction graphic novel. This one is awesome because it is looking at the thylacine, which is the official name of the Tasmanian tiger, which is an extinct animal here in Australia and went extinct because we hunted it to extinction, because of course we did. In this one, our main character is doing a school project on the thylacine and she's struggling a little bit, and then the ghost of the last thylacine turns up and takes her on a journey to the past, to the present day, and into the future to look at the history, the present day reality of studies that are going into recreating and the potential return of the thylacine, as well as the impact that that could have in the future. So it is a really interesting story. I love that the actual colouring in the book represents going back into the past, into the present day, and also into the future. It's full of fun facts and is really engaging. It's very humorous, and I had the best time reading it. It was just really, really fun, and I learned a lot of things. Like, I didn't know that they were trying to bring back the thylacine, and the research is happening here in my home state at one of the universities, which that's really cool. There's also the third and final book in the Elston Fright trilogy, The Lost Notes of the Soul Spinners by Reece. This is a series that I've been reading since it first came out. I've been very, very lucky to have received all of the series, and I just can't rate it enough. It is a middle grade fantasy story. We follow two girls who are ghosts and the magical hijinks that ensue and all of the magical happenings that happen in Elston Fright, which is where they are living. In this book, we come full circle. The girls have been trying to find out about their past because they're ghosts and they have died. They don't really remember lots about their life as a living person because that's the first thing to go. In this book, they start to get those answers while also having to fight off a threatening magic that is trying to steal the lost notes of the soul spinners, which is said to be able to grant you one wish when you hear them. And so the girls want to stop the enemy from getting that last wish, but they also would like to be able to use that wish for themselves as well. It's a really lovely story. There's a lot of characters that we've met in the previous two books that are an integral part of this story. There's magic, there's adventure, a little bit of chaos thrown in there, and it was a really wonderful conclusion. I think Reece did a great job wrapping up the series. And then a young adult fantasy book is Blood Moon Bride by Demet Divaroren, and this one is about Reece, who is a 15-year-old girl turning 16 who finds herself caught up as a blood moon bride, and that means that she's about to be put up for auction and entered into a forced marriage. And this book is about her standing up, the punishment that she receives for that, and how she then goes on to challenge the genocidal nature of her community, as well as the way that they have erased an entire culture because they feared it, and how she encourages people to stand up to gender-based violence. Like, it's a heavy read. It's not an easy young adult fantasy book, but there is so much depth to it, and I was really, really pleasantly surprised because you guys know I'm not that much of a young adult reader. I'm not the target audience, and I'm also not the biggest fantasy reader, and this one was just fantastic. I was deeply engrossed in Reece's story, and I wanted to know how she was going to face all of these things and how it was going to be tackled. I will say, I think maybe the last little bit felt a little bit rushed in terms of the ending, but I also do think there's a lot going on in the story that makes up for that as well. So this was a really interesting book to read, especially given the current climate. All right, I think those are all the review titles, which then brings us to all of the books that I haven't talked about in videos, and we're going to talk about them now. So on the screen, you can see all of them, but we're actually going to go through them and hopefully rapid fire share some reviews. All right, so one of the first books I read this month was What Does Israel Fear from Palestine by Raja Shehadeh. And this is a really great tiny little book to read if you want a bit more background knowledge on everything that is going on between Israel and Palestine. And I think it is done in a really accessible way, in a bite-sized manner. So I think if you are looking to continue to add to your TBR on this topic, this is a really great little non-fiction book to pick up. I also finally read A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcie Littlebadger because I absolutely loved Alat's Away, and I have had this for a while and I just haven't picked it up yet. I actually ended up listening to the audio for it while I was doing a bunch of stuff around my apartment, and I think it was a great way to do it. I will come back at some point and read the physical book because I think I want to annotate it. And this one is about Nina. She's a Lipan girl, and she has always known that there is something other about the world. And there is Ollie, who is a character who lives in a parallel world, which is the realm of spirits and monsters. And he is a cottonmouth kid, which means he is a snake human. And their stories converge when an event on Earth causes an almost extinction event for another type of animal, which affects the lands of spirits and animals. And so that is how Nina and Ollie and all of their friends end up meeting as they try to save the world. It is delightful. We weave in and out of both of their stories constantly. And it's not until we sort of get to this deciding event that they start to converge and we start to see how everything connects together. And I really love that. I mean, I'm not someone who knows a huge amount of Native American folklore or history aside from sort of the big events, and I think the way that Darcie Little Badger tells their stories is just beautiful and incredible, and I love the way everything weaves together, and I need to read more. Like, it's a prompt to read more. That's always a good thing. I also read of Love and Libraries. This was a book that I received in a subscription box. It is a beautiful special edition. Oh my goodness, like this whole book it's so visually stunning, and this is a sapphic romance between octogenarians. Like, it's delightful. We have our two main characters who were friends when they were kids and teens, and then one character got married and the other left, and they haven't seen each other for years and years. And suddenly the one who left has to return, and they are forced to see each other and to confront what happened in their past and the fact that they have feelings for one another. And it was just lovely. It's set against the backdrop of libraries because one of the characters is a librarian and the library is under threat of closure because they don't have the funding. And the other is, or was, a photographer for National Geographic, or the equivalent. They work together to find and hatch a plan to save the library. And throughout the book, there are also letters from characters in the book to the board that is threatening to close the library, talking about how important the library is. Again, in this current climate, very, very topical and just lovely. This is such a bite-sized little book. Highly recommend it. I did reread Slave to Sensation. This is the first book in the Side Changeling series. I actually have a whole video about this. I'll also leave that one linked down below. I don't think you need me to talk about it. It was a good fun time rereading it. I was reading it with one of my in real life friends who's never read the series, and then we went and met Nalini Singh. I now have it signed. There is also Rules for Redemption by T.A. White. I have an entire live show where we discuss this because this is the first book in the Phoenix Chronicles and we are doing a read along for it. Again, that will also be linked down below. Highly recommend this one if you want a sci-fi romance that feels like Ilona Andrews. I also read With You by Marley Valentine. This is a follow-up sequel, novella-ish length story following on from Without You, and it looks at the lives of our two characters post that book, and it is just the kind of conclusion and lovely ending that I needed. It's short enough, and if you haven't read the first book, I don't really want to go into spoilers about that, but it is how people around them are dealing with their relationship, because it is the relationship between a man who falls in love with his dead brother's partner. And there is a whole lot more that goes into it. It's a very kind of nuanced story, and Without You tackles what probably was not addressed or not concluded in the first book, which I appreciate. Oh, I didn't bring Magic Shifts with me. I did reread Magic Shifts by Ilona Andrews. I was listening to the graphic audio. It's as delightful as ever. Again, we have a live show about that. I mean, what don't I have a live show about at this point in time? I also read Fake Friends by Saxon James. This is part of the Never Just Friends series, which is one of the series that I'm trying to read through this year. This one is an second chance romance between an influencer and their ex-best friend, from memory. So Rowan and Circus have, not seen each other in years, and in fact there is quite some bad blood between them. They haven't been friends in a very long time, but one of them needs some assistance. They need a modeling partner for some brand deals that they have for their influencer account, and the other offers to help out. So it's kind of this reluctant ex-friends to lovers story. I haven't enjoyed the first two books in the series. I've read the fourth one, the third or the fourth book, and I really enjoyed that one. So I think it's just different dynamics, depends on whether or not I'm enjoying the story. Like, it's a 3.5 star kind of book. I will say this book does deal with homophobia, including internalized homophobia. There's a big thing that one of the characters is overcoming, so just be mindful of that. I also read Bite Back by Hannah Ferguson, or I should say I listened to it. I did read it, but I was listening to it. Hannah Ferguson is a social media news influencer, I suppose, here in Australia. She runs Cheek Media, and this is her book where she is talking about all sorts of topics. There's a lot going on, but it's mostly about politics, feminism. There is a lot of discussion around gender-based violence in this book. There is discussion about sexual assault. It talks about why she, as a young woman, she's 26 or 27, I think, started her own media company to be able to talk about these topics and have nuanced conversations that we don't get in traditional media. It's a really interesting book, but I would go into it. If you are at all cautious, go and look up the content warnings for it. I think she's a very interesting person, and I quite like following her channel on Instagram, in particular, and she does, at the moment, she's doing a lot of work around our upcoming federal elections, and she has lots of really good information. And while she definitely has her opinion and the side that she is on, she is also very fair and balanced in the way that she talks about topics and how people can have conversations with family members who might be far more conservative than they are. So I quite like that side of her work. I also read Power Forward by Jodie Oliver. This is part of the, oh God, what is it? I've just mentally blanked on the series name. The Chicago Thunder series. I've been talking for a long time this morning. It's a lot. Now I'm going to need my notes. So this is a queer hockey romance. One of our characters is a retired pro player who has become a sports agent because he had a career-ending injury. And it is his second chance romance with a former teammate who he hasn't seen in quite a while. This book does deal with some fairly heavy topics around mental illness, around anxiety and depression, and going through therapy and trying to become better for yourself, and then also to try and repair the relationships that may have been damaged as a result of what you were going through. And it's a huge part of the story. It's funny because I read this and then I also read The Shot You Take by Rachel Reed, which I'll show you in a minute, fairly close to one another. And they both have very similar kind of themes, but I think they both tackle them in slightly different ways, but both of them were really good. I really enjoyed it. I've been enjoying the series, and in particular, I think this one is probably one of the more hard-hitting books in the series so far. The other thing that I do want to mention that I really liked about this book is that one of our characters is on medication for his depression, and he talks about the side effects of that medication and how that affects relationships and how that makes him insecure. And I like that conversation. I wish we had more of that in books, particularly in romance books, because it tends to get brushed over a little bit, I think. Whereas this one, it was front and center and it was actively discussed. We should also like having open conversations about how things do and don't work in the bedroom, sometimes out of our control. I appreciated that. And since I just mentioned it, I might as well bring out The Shot You Take by Rachel Reed, which is the next one on the list anyway. So this is a queer hockey romance. It is a second chance friends to lovers story set much later in life. So one character left the sport. He quit the sport. He didn't retire. He left because things were spiraling out of control, and it has to do with their relationship. One of them was still deeply closeted. The other was not really willing to remain so. One thing I did forget to say while I was filming this is that their original relationship was quite an unhealthy relationship, and that is due to one of the characters being very deeply closeted. So just be mindful of that, because his journey is understanding how and why he behaved that way in that relationship, and then them overcoming that as well. They were teammates, they were on the same team, and they were dynamic together. And then one of them he had to leave, and then his life spiraled and he quit the sport and he moved back to his small town, and that's where he's been ever since. Our second character comes to town after the first character's father passes away. And so Adam comes to the town for the funeral, and he's trying to reconnect with Riley, and he's not quite sure they're ever going to be able to repair the damage to their relationship. They're both in their 30s. They're both, trying to figure out what's going on. Adam's just retired. He was the captain. He's very famous. People in the town are just enamored with him. And that puts added pressure on the fact that he's trying to repair this relationship with Riley. And it's just these two men muddling through to find a way back to any kind of semblance of relationship with one another. It is hard to read at times. I think it does, as I said, with Power Forward, it goes into some deep topics. And I think it's all handled really well. I think Rachel Reed is a very consistent writer. I've enjoyed all of her books that I've read so far. Hockey is clearly something she is passionate about. It is front and center, even though neither of them are playing professionally anymore. But also at the heart of it is this relationship that was one of the best things in their lives until it wasn't anymore. And then the damage that has caused, and then how do you repair that? And my camera just died, so I've had to switch batteries, and I think we're going to call it there. There is one more book, which was a short story, which I don't really feel a strong need to talk about because it was about 9 pages long. I'll leave the name down below if you want to look it up. But yes, that is my wrap up for this month. It was a good reading month, particularly towards the end. Like, I had a really great reading month, and I am trying to better manage my reading projects. We'll see how that goes. Sometimes I just get an idea in my head. I'm like, this sounds great, because I have no self-control. In the comments below, I'd love to know, have you read any of these books? Are you planning on picking any of them up? Or do you have recommendations for similar titles? Feel free to leave those down below. Otherwise, feel free to leave a book stack emoji to let me know that you're here. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy. And I will see you in my next video, which should be, I'm hoping, my first quarter stats. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.